what's up, good people? Welcome to another episode of a Dope Chicks Spiritual Journey. I'm your girl, DocSunne, and I am beyond excited. I'll tell a little bit on us. Before we started right now, my guest today, I don't even want to call her my guest, my girlfriend, my soul sister. We were chatting it up, and then we were like, okay, wait. We got to stop because it was getting too heated. And you all know I do this podcast because I truly believe that we are all on a journey, that we are all living life. And along the way, there's this spirituality part that grips us and holds us and transforms us and lifts us up and carries us through those difficult times. And so I just like having inspirational conversations with dope sisters that I know have deep-rooted connections to God, that I know have seen and lived some life, but they have found practical ways to ground themselves and root themselves in something bigger. And so, man, I'm jumping out of my seat for this conversation to start. This is my soul sister. We call each other soul sisters because we could be apart for months. And then when we see each other, it's like, we missed each other. And we pick up right where we left off. I always like my guests to introduce themselves because I want them to share their soul and their spirit with you. So I'm welcoming you to the conversation with my sister, my dope sister, Tiana. Tiana, tell the people, who are you?
Oh boy. Who am I? First and foremost, I'm the child of the divine. Let me just start there, as we all are. But one of the things that I do, I'm the CEO of ESP Group, which is a communications agency working across art, design, and hospitality. I am a scholar. I'm a writer. I'm a researcher. I have a social practice. So it's a weird moniker that people have given me. I haven't chosen, but in my own way, I'm an artist. I paint with my community. So I really am someone whose work in all aspects is really about inciting consciousness, right? So that's kind of my jam. That's what I do.
I love it. And I what I know about you is that everything you do from a deep, deep place of like spirit, right?
Indeed.
And one of the parts of this conversation that I love to have with my sisters is like this divinity piece, this idea of the divine and how God moves in and through our lives. And I know that over the last few years, you have had to plug in, like toes and feet plug in. So for you, when you think of your relationship with God, like what does it mean to you?
So, wow, what does it mean to me? It's my breath. When I was a kid, if you can imagine this, when I say kid, late teens, early 20s, one of my friends were like, my gosh, you're like Job. And I was like, and it's something that I've kind of carried through my life. When you really think about like being 20, 21 and your girlfriend turning around and being like, you're like Job. It's something that stays with you, and there is no me without the work of the spirit. And I can explain that even further, but from a very young age, I come from a long line of very spiritual women. So I've been in practice very young. My mom and my stepdad used to go to meditation classes. They were kind of new agey.
Yes. I know.
And an only child. So they would be like, all right, no babysitter, come along and stare at the flame and move the flame, when I was a kid. So I kind of, grown up with awareness of another realm and sort of the more, and given some of the stories or things I've been through, or rather than, sort of frame it that way, some of the things that have occurred in my life that actually don't make quote unquote sense.
Talk about it.
But God, right?
Talk about it.
So none of it, if it was like kind of on paper, makes sense. It's not supposed to be that way. You're not supposed to be able to do that. You're not supposed to be able to be in those places and spaces. That doesn't factor into how I move in the world. And that is because, and my pastor coined this term. So Pastor Terry Richardson, First Baptist Church, South Orange, Godfidence.
Oh, Godfidence.
Godfidence. And it's funny because sometimes, we could be in the valley, and the valley is where all that deep work happens, but it is reconnecting to the divine through that Godfidence, like, oh, this doesn't make any sense, and it seems impossible, but it's not about me. It might be impossible for me. It's not impossible for God, and those are the things that kind of are the machine. What used to be in the background, but I think now I'm a woman of a certain age, it's in the foreground.
Oh, yes.
You can't talk to me without me talking about, the divine.
That thing, that relationship.
That relationship. Indeed.
So when I hear you talk, I love, we always have these conversations. So
you are magic. So I hope, I'm so excited to be part of this first and foremost, and truthfully, like, honored because you have been someone who, when you open your mouth, the room stops. You shift the room and the energy and are just, I've called you like, sis, help. I remember that day. Help. But this is the first time where I've been invited to speak on something that's so important to me.
Yes.
That's why I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not supposed to cry through the whole podcast, but I want to, because I've just never been invited to talk about this, talk about other things that are, okay, they're important.
But you know what's so funny? I can't see you, and I don't see most human beings outside of their divinity. So it's funny that you would go and speak on other things, and you may not like overtly like interject God, or maybe you do, but even though you're there to speak on another topic, this aspect of you is all over you. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you wouldn't be there without that rooting and grounding. And I want to ask you, when you think of your journey, right, up until now, right, because you're at a semicolon, comma, you're not at a period.
Right.
When you think of your life journey, what are some key experiences when you look back and you see that Godfidence? You were like, oh, no, I know that was beyond me or my ability.
Oh my gosh, there are, one thing I will talk about is when I met my husband. So, as we do on the dance floor, one evening out with friends, we had met in passing. It's a very long, funny story, but that's for another episode. Met in passing, and we all ended up at a party together after dinner. This is post college. Everyone just graduated, in New York, crossed Nels. We were at Nels, and then we went somewhere else. And we danced all night. And I get home, and my very, religious mother is going to church at the crack of dawn, and slightly offended by the time I got home and all this stuff. And I said, Mom, I met my husband. She said, are you drunk? What happened to you? Like, what is wrong with you, young lady? I'm sure you didn't meet your husband. I was like, no. I know. I just knew. And it wasn't like a puppy dog love kind of thing. It was always very serious and intentional.
So let me ask you something. Did you hear like an audible? Was it, because my last guest, I asked her, when you get that connection or that, what I call an inkling from God, what is it for you? because my last guest, Tenora, she said for her, it's connected to how she feels, but what is it for you?
Oh, so that has evolved over the years. That when I was younger, it was very much like it's just coming out, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's audible. Now it is audible. It can get a little feisty in its audibility. I remember one day I was in the shower. A lot of things happen in the shower. I tell everyone in my house, ma'am, when I'm in the shower, unless the house is burning down, do not, under any circumstances, knock on the door. And it's not about me, woosah. It literally is the portal space. And when I get a message, it is loud, it is clear, it is blatant. And if I'm not listening fast enough, I'll get yelled at. I remember one day I was like, a scripture, the way I read the Bible is not traditional, or way I interact with the Bible as a living word is not traditional. And it was just as, you know, a verse that I wasn't even familiar with. And it was like, read this now. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get dressed. I had to leave the shower in my towel and go grab the Bible and understand what was being said. It was a message of, you know, you will be okay. That was the word. So when people talk to me about this thing they call spirit, oh, it is real. There is nothing, yes, there, you know, I don't know how to explain it. It is a relationship that is something that you have to water and cultivate and be respectful of. When you speak to those people and they're like, okay, I was told to do this and I just went and did it, because there is that awe and, dare I say, fear of not following through. So now that I am older, also the divine will send people.
Amen.
So I'll tell another story of my mother has white coat syndrome, where she's terrified of doctors, and very, very healthy woman, but she had cancer and had to have an operation. It was stage 2. It was manageable. She had to have an operation to get the tumor removed. And I knew I needed to be there. I'm the kind of person who will sleep in the hospital room with you. They have to kind of kick me out. So with her, I knew I needed to be there, because if I left her there, she probably wouldn't have made it out, not because she was ill, but because her body was so pure. They would have pumped her with the normal things, and it would have sent her into a spiral. Anyway, I was at Brooklyn Hospital and literally sleeping in a window well for 3 days. Finally, I explained to them, her blood pressure keeps going up because she's terrified of you. It's not because she has high blood pressure. Do not give her anything for her blood pressure. We just need to get her out of this space. They move us to another room, which someone actually had one of those bed things for me, thank God. And the nurse walks in and she said, "You're not using your anointing." And slammed the door and started praying. And I was like, oh. It's like that for me. So when the message needs to come, it's going to come. And if I'm not listening, it'll make itself known. So
it'll come around multiple ways.
Yes. So this is not, and everyone's vibrating in a different space. So if someone's like, I don't hear anything, it's okay. It's okay. And I think, without going into a lecture right now, we're so noisy. Like,
Preach.
Shut off the news.
Preach.
Put down the phone. You can't hear. I'm not a magical fairy. I'm not special. You just can't hear. It's too much noise.
And you can't, and oh God, this is so good. And you can't learn how you hear if you don't shut off the noise.
Yes.
Because I know some people who say for them, it's through a dream. For me, like you, I've evolved over the years, and sometimes for me it comes through music, right? Like I was praise and worship leader for my mom's ministry for many, many years, and there were times when I would be leading praise and worship and just information about people, like I would look at people and you know, God would say something to me and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna file that, and after I'll go speak to them. So it was just, it would come so many different ways. But I think to your point, it's hard to hear when everything around you is noisy. You can't even like figure out how you hear, because for those listening, you don't have to hear the way Tiana hears or the way that I hear. The key is that it's gonna, it could come to you in like a little, you know, your stomach does a little something, something. So to your point, though, it's funny though, because you know, my husband and I had the same situation with my husband in college.
Oh,
So
really?
yes, I was sitting in the windowsill, hanging out with my bestie, God rest her soul, who passed away a few years with cancer. And we were talking and we were having a good time. And he comes walking by with his fraternity brothers, you know, and you know, the windowsill in college, that's where you gossip and you're looking at everybody and you're talking about everybody. He walks by, and for me, it was audible. I heard the voice of God, my spirit say, that Kyle is your husband.
Wow.
And I look over, because, you know, people might not believe you. I looked over at my best friend. Unfortunately, she's not here anymore to prove that I said this, but it's been documented. I look over her and I say, God just told me Kyle's my husband. And she looked at me and she's like, well, girl, why are we still here in the windowsill?
Ah, I like that friend. God bless her.
And it was her. She got me out of the windowsill. We went outside and I ran him down. My mom was like, you ran a man down? I said, oh Lord, my Caribbean mother she was not happy with that. But but to your point, there's a way that God speaks to us and guides us. Indeed. And so I'm intrigued by how open you are about your divinity and your faith. How do you, as a woman doing what you do professionally,
right,
all of these various spaces with different people, different energies coming your way, how do you stay on point? How do you stay on point?
Wow. That question was on point. So I went to a naturopath a couple of years ago, and he said to me, he's very famous, his name is Dr. Kukai, and he said, how do you survive? I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you're wide open. And he was like, everything's come. I'm a extreme empath. And I just didn't know what that meant at that time. I didn't know what I was feeling. I just didn't have that language. I was, you know, in my early 30s, I think. Yeah, I was in my early 30s and going through some medical challenges and just feeling out of sorts. And he was just like, you're just absorbing everything. Wow. So that, if we talk about journeys and things that in learning and evolving, I'm actually in tutelage right now to protect myself, because I will give until there's absolutely nothing left, and that's not sustainable anymore. But in terms of my professional life, there's a reason why. It's funny because every one of my clients chuckles when they really realize this is why the company is called ESB Group, because I say, I know what you need. And I use my gifts in my work a lot. I just don't say it. So when I have I'm a strategist, right? So we have a communications and strategy agency, and my anointing comes up in my work because I can see the forest through the trees. So I'll know very quickly, there's some things that people will say, and it doesn't matter what color they are or anything, they will say where I know they're operating in a different realm. And then when I know that, we can talk, we can speak straight, right? And they know who I am and they know what it is we're doing that is creating a kind of energy that's out in the world, right? So the work is to amplify certain messages and tell certain stories and kind of move the way the world thinks, right? So this is my work. But there, I use it also. I leave a lot of money on the table because at this stage in my life, there's a lot of people I will not work with, you know,
Whoa.
or I cannot
Tell
work.
me that. Like,
That no is Godfidence. Because when you say no to some zeros, it's because I deeply know that what either I'm going to give up in terms of my own health and spiritual well-being is not worth any dollar. I also know that if I use my gifts for something that is
out of
not
alignment.
board, I'm going to, you know, they say you whip with many stripes. I'm not going to fare well. So that also took learning. I had ulcers because of the stress, because of the kind of work and the kind of people that I have worked for in the past. So when I opened my consultancy 8 years ago, I said, you know, there's certain things I just won't do. Or I also like knowing when enough is enough, right? That's a physical thing, but that's also a spiritual thing, right? And there have been a lot of times where one of the things that I'm managing all the time is capacity, you know? I recently went through something, as you know, Sunne-Ryse, that I hit my capacity. We are not infinite. There's an infinite that gives us strength, but we're not infinite. We're in these material bodies with these organs within this machine right now that needs tending to, and sort of respecting the fact that if I'm not tending to my machine, I can't do all the other things. So it has been a journey, that learning, especially, and there are people who are not empaths and will be like, what are you talking about? There are people whose energies, it's like wood, nothing can get in. No matter what you say to them, it's like a brick, right? So really it's about a balance between what you let in and don't let in, and understanding who you are. I mean, and not to go into a full lecture on this, but most of the people who would be even listening to you are already either seeking or knowing, right?
Yeah.
Or in between, though, both of those things. We're always seeking and we're knowing, right?
Yeah.
But there are folks who don't want to know about themselves, don't want to know God, or may not be able to because they don't know themselves. There's something about a spiritual being that you have to engage yourself in that intimacy with God before you can even have anything to offer, you know? And a lot of people don't like to be with themselves.
Whew. That part.
Yeah.
That part. And it's so funny you say that, because I look at the world, and one of the big reasons why I wanted to do this was because I wanted to make intimacy with God and the journey of life that we have in this interplay with God, I wanted to make it less spooky is not the word, but like far off. I wanted to make it practical. It is practical. This is every day. What you have described is just everyday life, but most people are running from everyday life. They're running from it. And if we were to just stop and pause and allow ourselves to feel, to listen, we would actually be further along than when we are now.
You know, We're very fortunate. And why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I'm not taking anyone else out of the story. So it's not my intention. And I'm not saying this is not possible for all people.
Yeah.
But if you're from the South and you're first generation up north where we are, you're fortunate. We're from the deep, deep South. We're Caribbean and we're first generation. There is a proximity to spirit and nature that has been lost by being in these concrete jungles. And the funny thing is that, and this is part of my work and my research and the work that I do, it is growing up in traditions and households where spirit is life.
Yeah.
You know, I have taken for granted that, you know, sort of as a younger person, that everyone was like this and, you know, blah, blah, blah. The thing that we have, and I know that anybody could be listening to this, but one of the things that I think that we as a community have really been hoodwinked with is believing that our spirit nature, our traditions, our African traditions, our relationship to the one God, don't let them fool you, you know, Yoruba, there is one God. We invented the one God concept. Period. That's
Amen.
it. And if you need some books, I can send them.
We could drop them in the links for you.
Drop them in the links, but this is ours. However we manifest it and however we go about, whether we're going through the Bible is my portal of choice.
That's right.
Whatever you use, you're going to find a portal. But what's fascinating is when you look at things happening on the continent, I've been stuck in a lot of Nollywood and, you know, West African dramas. Thank you, Boz, for letting loose on Netflix. Or you watch any of those movies, or you know, sort of look at the Caribbean, what you'll notice, even if the movie is about, you know, Savage Beauty I was watching. So if you were movies about a beauty empire or whatever the thing is about, there's always a spiritual aspect that they are in conversation with, right? Because culturally, it is part of life. I remember one of my old colleagues, her father, German, her father invented the eyedropper, like for real. And she wore talisman for protection.
Yeah.
There, you know, we live in Jersey. There's a huge Asian community. There are all of these like crystal shops popping up. It's not us who are in them. It's everybody else. What are they working with? Energy. Yeah. So the fact that we somehow think that this kind of relationship with the divine energy, the energy that inhabits us, that gives us direction, that activates us, is spooky, is a bit mistaken. And through that, we're giving up our power, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, one of the people, as you know, that I am the way I am is because of my mother and the journeys that she has been on, the spiritual journeys, and how she's raised my brothers and I. And for her, that was always, you know, that's why her church was in the middle of Brooklyn, because she was like, no, like we cannot forget, like you can get caught up in the name that is used, but it is one God. And you're not going to neglect the fact that there's a divine power working in you, through you, for you. It's in you, working through you, meaning it's not just about you, and it's working for you, on your behalf, outside of you. And so to your point, that is my prayer, Tiana. That is my prayer, that people realize they don't have to be subject to their circumstances. They
Come
don't
on.
have to be. It doesn't mean circumstances won't happen, because you and I
Right.
both know
Man.
they'll happen. But once you're grounded in something that's bigger than you have a different perspective.
And a different resource. So let me give you this quote, because I am such a, I'm a TD Jakes lover. Like, I don't know
Me
how some
too.
people watch Beyonce, like
Me
TD
too.
Jakes is my Beyonce, but I do love Beyonce too. And he said recently, the word will hold you up in what other people sink in. And I was like going for a walk. I was like, oh, wait a minute, let me rewind and rewind
That's,
and come again.
that's
Right.
good.
And given
Say it
that I
again. Say it
went
again.
through,
Say it again. Say it
it
again. Say it
said
again.
the word will hold you up in what other people sink in. So when you think about, and this is no judgment, people who are addicted to drugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all, anyone who's had a cocktail, it's a drug. Sugar is a drug.
Yeah, man.
Need
Potato
to be,
chips. That's mine.
potato, the other forms of drugs. So it's not a judgment, but people who get lost in them, right? My strength doesn't come from me. I mean, Sunne-Ryse, you know what I just went through. I
Yes.
literally didn't want to move.
Mm.
Every day I would touch a Bible, or someone would send a scripture, or you would send a note, or there was just angels, so it's got a visual of someone picking you up.
Picking you up.
Let's keep going. Like, without that, I think about my kids. I was like, what are you putting in your children's toolboxes? There's a toolbox. So God first, maybe a walk or yoga second, or journaling third, but God first.
Mm-hmm.
Because this right now is a battle royale. This is a spiritual battle, and everyone has said it. What's going on with COVID and all these things? I firmly believe that this is not about.
It's not of us.
It's not about us.
Mm-mm. No.
It's about a battle of light and darkness right now, and we need more foot soldiers on the light side. We do. We can't
Yes.
get out. You can't check out.
You can't check out. And the beautiful thing is what my mom always says. She's like, you don't need that much light either. My mother says, she uses this in her sermon. She says, pick a room in your house and make it absolutely dark. And then she says, light a lighter or a candle. And you will be able to see.
Wow.
From that one light.
Wow.
So sometimes our perspective is we focus on how much darkness there is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're consumed by us thinking how big it is, not realizing the proportion that you need of light to dispel the darkness.
Wow.
That
is profound. I thank you, because that is my takeaway from this guy. That is absolutely profound. That faith of a mustard seed, but that example, it's absolutely profound.
Try it. And
that's true.
Every time I've done it, because my mom says something, I'm like, what's she talking about? But you try, you go in a room and then you take a lighter or a candle. And that one, you could be in the room and not be able to see. That one thing will give you the ability to see.
Right.
And so she says, darkness is actually an illusion. It's deceptive. It will deceive you. It will tell you that things are worse than what it is, because darkness does not have the ability to actually alter the truth. It can't alter the fact that you're in a room and that there's a bed there, there's a tape. It doesn't have the ability to change the structure of anything. It can only change your perception of what you see.
You better preach.
So think of what you told me. This whole conversation started because 2 weeks ago, you gave me a word about light and remembering my light. And I had the expectation that my light had to brighten a whole house. And what God was like, I ain't tell you to lighten the whole house. I told you just light this one space. But many of us aren't lighting the one space that God has instructed us to light because we think we got to light the whole house. So then we take no action. But you had me take action on my light. And I'm so grateful to you, not just for this conversation, but for all of our conversations, and for being the spark plug to get this podcast going.
I am so excited for you. Like, I am so deeply excited for you. And I'm sitting here, I'm just like, I love profundity. And that is so profound. I'm going to be repeating this over and over again in my journey. But one of the things that it's not so spiritual, but it is spiritual in a sense that how we operate, and sort of to piggyback on what you were saying, we are so caught up in perfection. It's paralyzing. And these ideas, I think one of the biggest things that happened to me was releasing the idea that it had to be so great. It had to be perfect. My entire life changed by when I'm tired, God gave me the assignment, just do it. He's going to take care of the rest. And even when I'm writing, I can be in my head or I get obsessive. Just like, girl, get it on paper, get it to your best place and send it off. And when I send it off, it always reverberates. I've been going through this, and the evolution, right? And dope, that a couple of years, like I had been giving my light to my clients forever. And I never made space for myself. And then eventually it didn't feel good anymore. And I didn't have that Godfidence, or I didn't have that confidence. And I had to use Godfidence to get me to this other place. And this story is just unfolding. My mother called me a late bloomer the other day. I thought it was hilarious. I'm a late bloomer. I'm 40 something years old. I'm just stepping into the truth of my own creative practice, the truth of what I want to put out into the world, right? I gave that to other people in other ways all the time. So through God, but for God, all of these things, but for that relationship with the divine and trust in the divine, is the shift. It's the magic. And it's not about anyone else. What is for you, for you. And in Jamaica, say, what's for you, for you? What for you can't run for you, right? Like, it's just light up your space, and where that takes you, you might not know what God has planned for you.
I love it. I love it. I think we probably need a part 2.
Any day of the week.
This is one of those messages that I think, particularly what you said at the end about your mom saying you're a late bloomer. I think there's so many women that at this age of their lives that we are feeling like, did I get it right? Am I in the right place? Not recognizing it's just beginning. Because when you get to that part where you just said, listen, the perfection, bye. This is all about the divinity and who I am. That's when we actually start to live in our true essence of ourselves.
Right. Oh, yes. That is definitely a conversation that I'm interested in hearing about and having, because it is something that is actively being worked through, and really takes a lot of training. It's like going to the gym, but yeah, oh my gosh, I'm going to not even go there. Whenever you're ready, sis, I'm here. I would love to have that conversation, because, this is phase 2, and it looks good.
Absolutely. I love you. As I always say, this. I love you like cook food.
Yeah, indeed.
I love you. Like,
Same.
do you want people to find you if they want to know more about the great work that you're doing? How can they support you, hire you? Is there a way that people can find you?
Sure. So you can see some of my past work on yardconcept.com. If you are a yachty or Caribbean or love the Caribbean or been to Jamaica and love Jamaicans, you can go to jamaicaartsociety.com, support. We're doing a lot of great work in Jamaica and supporting artists of Jamaican descent globally. So, you know, those are two babies that I have in the world right now, but birthing more. And Sunne-Ryse, first and foremost, congratulations. Excited to see, don't mean to be corny, your Sunne-Ryse even further. But this is amazing. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Good people, you know what to do. You subscribe, you like, you comment, and you share, because what we're doing right now, talking about God and the divine, is not just about you, but it's about the people that you touch. So come back again, check out a Dope Chicks Journey podcast next week when I have another sister friend sharing her dope journey with you. And that's it, good people. I love you all like cook food. You know, do your thing. Do sister people.